To others, he's just a quiet, eccentric young man, someone living with autism. But on the operating table, his mind works like a supercomputer, calculating with precision and saving lives on the brink of death. Sean goes against the current, challenging every prejudice, every misunderstanding, and every test of human nature. The hospital receives a particularly difficult patient, Liam, who resists any form of treatment. Only Sean notices what's really going on. He asks the medical staff to let go of Liam, then speaks gently to him. After Sean takes care of the injury on Liam's head, the boy's parents arrive, wanting to take him home. However, no patient diagnosed by Sean has a simple condition. Sure enough, lab results reveal issues with Liam's liver and bile ducts, prompting the doctors to plan a full-body scan. However, Liam's body keeps seizing, making it nearly impossible to administer anesthesia. Seeing this, Sean firmly holds Liam's hands. Then, Liam suddenly blurts out a string of mysterious numbers.
32-8. 32-8.
Being autistic himself, Sean instantly understands. 32 is the number of windows in the room, and 8 is the number of door handles. This is how people with autism perceive their world, intensely focused on detail. And that's why, once they're out of their familiar environment, they can feel completely lost. The scan reveals scar tissue all over Liam's bile ducts, making it impossible to insert the endoscope any deeper. This symptom can be seen in many liver-related conditions, and in the worst cases, it could mean cancer. Neil suggests an MRI scan, but Sean disagrees. As mentioned before, people with autism struggle in unfamiliar environments. Forcing Liam into a dark, enclosed scanner could trigger extreme, even harmful reactions. To help calm Liam, Sean begins pacing the room back and forth. He'd noticed earlier that Liam enjoys counting things, so during the scan, Sean cleverly uses that to distract him. As the images start to appear on the screen, even Liam's parents can't help but be impressed.
How accomplished you are for someone with ASD.
But just then, something goes wrong. Liam can't take the pressure anymore. His body convulsed violently, and he began slamming his head forcefully against the machine. They had no choice but to stop the examination. And worse, the final image is too blurry to use. At this point, there's only one option left to find the root cause: an exploratory laparoscopic surgery. But this procedure carries significant risks. It should only be a last resort. Hearing that they'll have to operate on his abdomen, Liam grows visibly tense and starts muttering strange words. But even now, Sean understands what he means and calmly reassures him. Liam slowly calms down, looking at Sean as if he were his role model. That's when Sean notices something else: Liam's reddened eyes. He diagnoses it as uveitis, an inflammation of the eye's pigment layer. Sean believes Liam ate a certain type of plant, which has paralyzed his nitrification system. Thankfully, it's not the worst-case scenario like cancer. Still, the damaged part of the intestines needs to be surgically removed. Upon hearing this, Liam's parents agree to the surgery, but only if Sean is excluded from the operating team. They say they understand autism and fear that Sean might lose control mid-surgery and ruin everything. This narrow-minded thinking enrages Sean's supervisor, Neil. After working with Sean for so long, even someone as proud as Neil has to admit Sean's talent. If they truly don't trust Sean, they're welcome to go to another hospital. But as long as they stay here, Sean will remain part of the team. Right then, Liam speaks up, expressing his own desire.
I want Dr. Sean.
Sean arrives at his bedside, deeply moved by Liam's trust. Just then, Liam's condition suddenly worsens. The surgery must happen immediately. Inside the operating room this time, Neil personally hands the scalpel to Sean. There was a time when Neil also doubted Sean's abilities, but after everything, Sean has finally earned the right to lead the surgery. The procedure begins. Their goal? Remove the damaged section of Liam's intestine. But as things are progressing smoothly, Sean suddenly speaks up.
I have.
Everyone turns to look at him, confused, until Sean reveals that Liam also has cellulitis. A cyst the size of a fist is attached to the intestine. Sean holds his breath, not daring to make a move. If that pus-filled cyst bursts and leaks into Liam's abdominal cavity, it could kill him instantly. Luckily, they spotted the problem in time. Working together, the surgical team manages to drain the infection and remove the cyst. Though full of complications, the surgery ends in success. Sean delivers the good news to the family. Liam's mother throws her arms around him, offering heartfelt thanks and apologizing for her earlier prejudice.
You shouldn't feel bad. You did what you thought was best for Liam. You love Liam.
No one was truly in the wrong, but Sean still advises them not to coddle their son. Autism doesn't mean he can't grow to be independent. In the end, the parents take his advice and begin encouraging Liam to make his own choices. Sean was at the supermarket when a robbery broke out. The thief ordered him to raise his hands, and Sean did as told. But then the robber told him to hand over his wallet. This completely confused Sean. How could he do that with his hands still in the air? The robber didn't realize Sean was autistic. He thought Sean was being defiant, so he pulled the trigger. Sean dodged just in time. The bullet hit Avery in the stomach. Realizing things have gone too far, The robber panics. At that moment, others nearby seized the chance and knocked the robber out. Avery was rushed to the hospital where Sean worked. When Avery's boyfriend Brandon found out Sean was a doctor, he immediately snapped. In his eyes, this was all Sean's fault, but Sean wasn't affected by Brandon's accusations. He stayed calm and focused, and in the operating room, successfully removed the bullet from Avery's body. Unfortunately, her spleen was severely damaged, and Sean had no choice but to remove it. After the surgery, the lead doctor, Neil, informed Brandon that Avery had suffered massive trauma. Her body was at risk of a devastating inflammatory response. The next 24 hours would be critical, and she needed to stay for observation. But now, Brandon revealed something surprising. He and Avery had only been in a long-distance relationship online. This was actually their first time meeting in person. They barely knew each other. So, in his mind, there was no reason for him to stick around.
Someone out there cares about her. If she dies, I want them to know someone was with her.
Later, when Sean came to check on Avery in her room, he ran into Brandon again, who was still blaming him nonstop. But Sean only had eyes for his patient. He picked up Avery's urine bag and noticed something unusual. Then he suddenly pulled back the blanket, revealing that Avery's leg had swollen up. This meant her organs were rapidly shutting down. Doctors immediately started dialysis, but her condition kept worsening. Her lungs were next. She now needed chest drainage. Just as Sean prepared to insert the needle, Brandon started questioning his decision again. But Sean's technique was skillful and steady. The fluid was successfully drained from Avery's chest, and her heart monitor began to stabilize. Still, this was only a temporary fix, not a cure. Neil asked the nurse to prepare the meds, then walked over to Brandon.
Think you're being her hero? Fact is, you hardly know her, and you don't know him at all.
The doctors gathered to reassess Avery's condition. Suddenly, they came up with a bold theory. Maybe the reason her organs were failing so fast was because there was still a hidden bleeding point inside her. If that were true, she'd need another surgery. But in her current condition, she might not survive it. Before the doctors could make a decision, the alarms went off wildly again. Avery's condition had worsened, and they had no choice but to rush her into the operating room. As soon as they opened her up, massive bleeding erupted. They had to find the source, fast. Sean mentally simulated a human anatomy model, tracing the bullet's trajectory.
Open her between the second and third rib on the left side.
Following Sean's lead, the team discovered the bleeding artery between her ribs. With swift coordination, they managed to stop the bleeding, and Avery's vitals finally stabilized. The surgery was a success, but whether she'd survive the night still depended on her own strength. That's when Avery's parents finally arrived at the hospital. As if sensing their presence, Avery slowly began to wake up. Brandon got ready to leave, but Avery called out to him. She was grateful he had stayed with her through it all. Have you ever seen someone perform surgery in virtual reality? VR is often used to simulate extremely high-risk procedures. In the first simulation, Sean attempted to shrink a patient's heart septum to 18 millimeters, but as soon as he made the adjustment, the heart stopped beating. He kept trying. This time he aimed for 13 millimeters. It was better. Blood flow was steady, but still, the heart gave out. So, who was the unfortunate patient Sean kept experimenting on? The heart belonged to a young boy from Congo, Gabriel, who was born with a congenital heart defect. Inside his tiny chest, he suffered from 3 conditions at once: hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, an atrial septal defect, and an abnormal mitral valve insertion. Because of how complex his case was, Gabriel was chosen to receive free treatment. But when Gabriel arrived at the hospital, Dr. Avi took one listen with his stethoscope and wanted to back out. It was the first time he'd seen a case like this. 3 disorders combined. Every doctor reached the same conclusion. Nothing could be done. They decided to prescribe medication to stabilize Gabriel for now, then discharge him. But Sean disagreed. He proposed a plan, starting with a myectomy and correcting the mitral valve issue. Though Sean's ideas made sense in theory, performing all those procedures together would leave almost no room for error. Neil turned down the proposal. Sean challenged him, "So we don't try just because we're afraid?" Neil then spoke with Gabriel's mother, Georgita, and offered the hospital's most conservative plan, medication only. But days passed, and instead of going home, Gabriel suddenly went into shock. Something wasn't right. The medication should have helped. Neil confronted Georgetta, and the truth came out. She hadn't given the medicine to Gabriel at all. She knew the hospital was brushing them off. If they missed this chance, they'd never be able to afford treatment again. Burdened by guilt, Neil finally agreed to Sean's plan. Because of how complex this surgery was, the team had no choice but to use VR for simulation. After running countless simulations, they finally found the optimal surgical path. The real operation began. The doctors opened Gabriel's chest and hooked him up to a heart-lung machine to control his heartbeat. Once that was done, they had just 5 hours left to complete the procedure. They followed the simulation step by step. At first, everything went smoothly, but when they got to the final stage, they discovered Gabriel's heart septum was too stiff. 14 millimeters wasn't going to work. With time running out, Neil made a last-minute decision to reduce it to 13 millimeters. But just like in the simulation, the valve couldn't hold. They had failed. Were they really going to just watch a young life slip away in front of them? In that critical moment, one of the doctors noticed something. Beneath the septum, there was a support point. They could try shifting the valve. The team jumped into action. After a flurry of precise movements, a miracle happened. Neil brought the good news to Georgita, and she broke down in joyful tears. The journey to hope may be filled with despair, but as long as hope still exists, it's worth chasing. Bobby was a video game champion, until excessive gaming led to an injury in his left arm, and the one treating him was Sean. Sean asked Bobby to squeeze his hand. By feeling the pressure, Sean diagnosed a torn ligament. All it would take was surgery to fix it, and Bobby could return to gaming. Just as Sean was about to voice a concern, Neil abruptly cut him off. Sean stayed quiet, but as he was leaving, Bobby stopped him. As one of the world's top esports players, Bobby believed the key to winning was thinking independently and not following the crowd. He encouraged Sean to trust his own instincts and not blindly obey authority. Sean seemed to understand, but years of self-doubt weren't easy to shake off. Soon after, the surgery began. The doctors opened Bobby's elbow, removed the torn ligament, and completed the repair. It was a straightforward procedure. The doctors all told Bobby to rest a few days. He'd be back on the stage in no time. But then Bobby asked to hear Sean's opinion. Sean finally shared what was on his mind. He suspected Bobby might have cancer and recommended an MRI to confirm. It wasn't good news, but Bobby agreed without hesitation. He had faith in Sean and reminded him that if he wanted to earn respect, he had to fight for his convictions. That's life. Desire is what drives us forward, but only courage can make those desires real. The test results came back quickly, and Sean was right. There was a malignant nerve sheath tumor in Bobby's arm. As it turned out, Bobby had battled cancer once before. It was treated, and he never gave it a second thought. But clearly, some cancer cells had spread to other parts of his body. Since winning the world championship, Bobby had been focused solely on competition, never stopping to get checked again. Now, without treatment, things could get worse fast. Doctors rushed to conduct a full-body scan, and the results were grim. Cancer cells had taken root in Bobby's brainstem. If the tumor grew, he would suffer brain death. But the brainstem is the command center of the body. Removing the tumor was extremely risky. Even if the operation succeeded, he'd likely be paralyzed on one side of his body, meaning he could never compete again. Bobby took in the news calmly. He agreed to the surgery without hesitation. He said he'd already won the championship. If this was the end, at least he'd gone out at his peak. The operation was performed by the hospital director, the most skilled surgeon they had. With steady hands, he removed the tumor from Bobby's brainstem. Everyone thought the worst was over, until the monitor suddenly blared with alarms. Bobby's body temperature was skyrocketing. If it continued, his heart rate would spiral out of control. The team was at a loss. That's when Neil turned to Sean for his opinion. Sean observed the rigidity in Bobby's body and quickly concluded the issue wasn't a stroke. It was malignant hyperthermia caused by the anesthesia. They immediately administered the proper medication, and Bobby's temperature began to drop. The surgery ended in success. After Bobby regained consciousness, Sean went to check on him. The left side of Bobby's body was completely numb. Sean gently told him he might never be able to play games again, but Bobby simply replied,
When I was a kid, I wasn't good at Jack. But I never quit.
Sean was deeply moved. Bobby's situation was so much like his own, and yet Bobby still held on to his love for esports. Sean sincerely wished him the strength to one day return to the stage. These conjoined twin sisters decided to undergo a brain separation surgery because they had both been accepted into two of the world's top universities, Harvard and Yale. In order to attend the schools of their dreams, the sisters finally chose to separate. Since Jenny and Katie shared a single renal vascular system, the doctors needed to first remove one of Jenny's kidneys and transplant it into Katie. Only after a 6-month recovery could they proceed with separating their brains. The first surgery went relatively smoothly. As they lay side by side in bed, the girls began imagining their lives on campus 6 months from now. Jenny joked that, at last, she wouldn't have to listen to her sister grinding her teeth anymore. The room was filled with laughter. But that very night, alarms rang out in the hospital. Jenny had suddenly fallen unconscious. The monitors showed signs of respiratory failure and a dropping heart rate. The doctors quickly determined it was heart failure. If left untreated, their shared brain could soon be deprived of oxygen. There was only one solution: to separate the twins immediately, to reduce the strain on Jenny's heart. What was supposed to be a 6-month preparation was now cut down to half a day. The risk of the surgery skyrocketed. Still, the sisters were determined. For the lives they dreamed of, they were willing to face any danger. After 10 hours of surgery, the doctors painstakingly separated the blood vessels in their shared brain, finally reaching the sagittal sinus vein, the main connection. Once they severed it, the operation was officially declared a success. But during the recovery period, another crisis struck. Jenny regained consciousness, but Katie slipped into a coma. Sean recommended an MRI, and sure enough, he discovered that Katie's brain had no blood supply. It had been in a constant state of oxygen deprivation. Even worse, Jenny's heart failure hadn't been fully resolved. At this rate, she might not survive the night. That's when Sean said something shocking. He suggested sacrificing one sister to save the other. If they gave Katie's heart to Jenny, at least one of them would survive. The impossible decision was handed to their mother: save one or lose both. With no other choice, their mother signed the surgical consent. For the third time, the sisters were wheeled into the operating room. The doctors removed Katie's oxygen mask. As they prepared for a moment of silence, something incredible happened. Katie showed signs of life. Her vital signs stabilized. The plan to sacrifice her could no longer proceed. So now what? Was there any way to save them both? Sean's brain kicked into high gear. He proposed reconnecting the sisters through their femoral arteries. This way, Katie's brain could receive blood supply from Jenny's heart. With circulation restored, both might survive. The twins were taken into surgery for a fourth time. Following Sean's plan, the doctors moved swiftly, and when the doors finally opened, both girls were awake. They gazed into each other's eyes, and all past frustrations seemed to melt away. But Sean wasn't done. He reviewed their post-op labs and noticed something strange. Jenny's aerobic protein levels were abnormal. That's when it all became clear. Jenny's heart had been doing all the work for both of them. Katie's heart was only partially functional. This explained everything that had happened before. Now, they had no choice. Jenny and Katie needed to be permanently separated, immediately, or they would both die. After 5 grueling surgeries, Jenny's body finally gave out. In the operating room, she stopped breathing. The doctors made a heartbreaking call to transplant Jenny's heart into Katie. Katie survived, now with her sister's heart beating inside her. From this moment on, Jenny could only live on in another way, within Katie's body, supporting her as she moves forward on the path to a normal life.